the Catalina Film Festival. The Catalina Film Festival is online this year. We have some great panels that are coming your way. Another one is coming your way right after I get off. But I'm here to kind of tell you about the Catalina Film Festival 2020. We're online with our partners, Film Festival Flicks. We have 119 amazing films that you have to go see. You can either buy a ticket to go see one block, one film, or you can buy an entire pass for 10 days, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Well, actually, it'd be 10 days out of that week because we extended the week for you 3 extra days for $49. So that's an amazing deal. Either $12, I believe, for a ticket or $49 for a festival pass. There's filmmakers from all around the world. We have Q&As after each of the films. So if you're going to see a shorts block, you'll see the Q&A with all the filmmakers after that shorts block. If you're going to see a feature, obviously you'll see the feature with the Q&A and the filmmakers and the talent after those blocks. It's been an interesting year, as we all know, with the pandemic. So we all had to do pivots and slides and shuffles and take the fun turns around the roller coaster and make this happen for you and for our filmmakers. That's the most important thing, is that we're bringing this type of entertainment to you in your home, since a lot of us can't obviously be out. We also have a really cool, for you Southern Californians, a really cool carpool cinema experience in Long Beach at the Scottish Rite Event Cultural Center. It's 855 Elm Avenue. You can buy the tickets online. I believe the Friday Fright Night with Wes Craven's competition block, and then following with the free bonus screening of Nightmare on Elm Street, is almost sold out. So I wouldn't wait. That's September 25th. And then the 26th, we're doing an LA Social Club, where we have a bunch of cool LA area filmmakers, and then following it with the Breakfast Club 35th anniversary right after that. That's also a free bonus screening that comes with the programming. The first drive-through red carpet in the world for a film festival. That's kind of cool. We're excited about it. We have a 30-foot long red carpet. You can come, wash your cars, bring your car on the carpet. We have a mask contest. Don't make sure you ruin the integrity of the medical purposes of your mask, but decorate it for, Horror Fright Night on Friday. And then we're going to have a contest, and we're going to give away prizes. And then on Saturday, you can do your favorite 80s mask. Again, prizes, contests, and we're just going to keep it fun. There's going to be press there. There's going to be media. There's going to be some stars there. And we are going to make it something that'll be unique and hopefully takes a little bit of the kind of malaise that we all have in this pandemic and puts a smile on your face. That's kind of the goal. When we started Catalina 10 years ago, God knows we didn't think that our 10th anniversary would be during a pandemic like this. I don't think anyone would do. But, lemons into lemonade. And I think we found a really cool recipe for lemonade that made it kind of fun and tossed it up a notch. And the online films we started doing last year, pre-pandemic, pre-corona. And then we just took it to a really cool place this year with really offering the world great entertainment, especially if you were never able to come out to the island, or never able to get on a boat, never able to come into the United States or California. Now you have the opportunity, and we're excited to give you that opportunity. We're going to show you some quick clips. If you can please stand by. I want to show you a clip of some of the films that we have that are in this festival. The first clip, I believe, is just our dramatic sizzle reel. And then if you're into horror, right after that, we're going to show you the Wes Craven horror competition reel as well. It's only about 40 seconds, but it'll just give you a flavor about what this year's festival is going to be. So, studio, whenever you're ready, you can run that clip. Pretty cool, huh? And then Storemaker Productions, one of our partners for all 10 years, has made that really cool ending with the Catalina Film Channel popping up out of the water like it's island within itself. Very dramatic with the birds going by. We thought it was pretty cool. And next, we'd like to show you horror thriller fans the Wes Craven sampling of competition films. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool. We one thing that we've always been proud of in the past 10 years is the quality of films that have come our way from filmmakers. I remember the story, I think it was from our first year. We had some filmmakers come to the island with some really great films, and we've always been sticklers about quality and what actually comes into the festival, because we figure if we're going to put all this work into it, and believe me, it's a lot of work, and we're going to hustle, and we're going to stress, and we're going to have sleepless nights, and we're going to work to make this the best possible event, we're going to have some great films. We've been to a lot of film festivals where we've seen some product and we're like, really? That got in? And that's something that we never wanted people to say. So first year, we had some great filmmakers that came in because we selected some great films and we're very quality driven. And they were like, one of the best compliments we ever got. It was our first year. And they were like, we honestly came in here going, it's our first year. We're going to win this. We have a great film. And then we saw the other films in our category. And we just want to say we're happy to be here. And we were like, it's our first year, but obviously we've been in the industry and we have a lot of industry people that are involved with this festival. But we were just so honored. And that was from year one. So now fast forward a decade. We've kept up with that quality. We've kept up with those standards. We've kept up with the love of film and independent filmmaking. And we understand the labors of love that go into this thing. We understand the beast that it becomes in your lives and that you marry it for 2 to 3 years and everyone involved with those productions. And we definitely understand the amount of responsibility that we have as a festival to honor what you've created, and that's kind of the cool partnership that we have with each of us in the festival filmmaking world. So we thank you for being a part of it. We definitely want you guys to see our films, so go check them out. Go look at our sponsors, look at our sponsor page. We've had a lot of great sponsors for a lot of years that have supported this. We have not done this alone. Believe me, this is a huge effort. We say it every year, it takes a village, because the amount of work that goes into putting up an event, multifaceted, even a technological event with this year going online, a lot of tech demands, a lot of recompression, a lot of needs for photos and stuff like that. We had demand from our filmmakers that we didn't have in the past. It's daunting. So we are happy that we got to 10 years, but we're more happy how it's grown. And it's grown off of the love and passion of all the filmmakers out there. So thank you. With that said, we like to bring you great programming, and we love to bring you amazing panels. And we've done that for 10 years as well. So this year we are bringing you 2 amazing panels online. The first one you're going to watch right now is the screenwriting panel. So I'm going to switch over to our amazing host who's going to take you to that venture. And please come visit us at catalinafilm.org and see our amazing films. We'll hope you the best during this crazy time.
Hey, everybody. This is Adam Marcus. I am mostly known for my horror street cred. I'm the writer-director of Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, writer of Texas Chainsaw, the writer, director, producer of Secret Santa, and a bunch of other nonsense. I am so excited to be here this morning. This is a crazy panel of writers. We couldn't get more diverse and more extraordinary in the kinds of projects and the kinds of backgrounds that these amazing writers come from. So I'm gonna introduce them all. You're gonna see their names at the bottom of the screen, so you can refer to them pretty easily. But folks, the amount of writing talent in this group is really extraordinary. So when Jenna came to me and asked me if I would work with this panel, I can't tell you how excited I was. So we're gonna start off. Let's see. I think everybody is looking at the same screen I'm looking at, or at least I hope so. So we'll go from top to bottom, left to right. So we have Alston Ramsey. Now this is nuts. So prior to his career as a screenwriter, Alston worked as a Pentagon speechwriter. Okay, so again, amazing, like the people who have come out of government and then become extraordinary writers. So Alston represents that tribe of folks. As a member of the senior staff for Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, General David Petraeus, and Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson, Alston traveled to over 30 countries on behalf of the United States government. At the height of the war in Afghanistan, Alston ran the commanding general's writing team in Kabul. I can't even believe I'm saying these words, guys. Upon leaving the Pentagon, Alston earned his MBA and brought his skills to bear in the film industry. He wrote and produced the psychological thriller Midnighters. In that capacity, he ran all financing and legal aspects of the production and negotiated the sales to IFC. Alston infused his unique political insights into his latest film, The Current Occupant, a feature film produced by Blumhouse and released in July 2020 as a Hulu original. Alston wrote the screenplay, and his brother Julius Ramsey directed the film. That's awesome, by the way. I've made movies with my brother, so that is fantastic. Both Ramseys were executive producers on the film. Alston was recently selected by the Tracking Board as one of Hollywood's top new writers and featured on the hit list. Good morning, Alston. Good to see you, brother.
Hi, you're giving me flashbacks with some of those things I've done over the years.
Moving on, we're going to go to Kieran Fitzgerald. By the way, like one of the best writer names I think I've ever heard. Just see that, like it's a perfect name. Kieran is a BA in English from Harvard University and an MFA in fiction and screenwriting from the Michener Center for Writers. He wrote and directed the feature documentary, The Ballad of, Ezekiel. See, forgive me. Ezekiel Hernandez, which was nominated for an Emmy in investigative journalism. With Tommy Lee Jones, he wrote The Horseman, starring what?
The Homesman.
I'm sorry, brother. I can't. Yeah,
okay.
I'm coming off the screen, and I'm forgive me.
Right.
Homesman, starring Jones and Hilary Swank.
Mm-hmm.
Now, get ready for this, guys. Gird your loins. He also wrote the Oliver Stone film Snowden, of course, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Shailene Woodley, and the 6-part Netflix series Wormwood, directed by Errol Morris. Jeez, dude. His current projects include 2 TV shows at Sci-Fi and at A24, and a series about Cuba and the CIA at Sony. I actually think you and Alston probably will have a lot to talk about. So that is kind of extraordinary. And then, guys, pièce de résistance, Boo Killebrew, whose list of accomplishments and credits is so berserk because you look like you're 14 years old. So it's way out of control. Boo was a Lila Atchison playwriting fellow at the Juilliard School, of course. and the recipient of the Paula Vogel Award at the Vineyard Theater. She's an alumni of the Emerging Writers Group at the Public Theater, no less. A recipient of the NYFA Fellowship, resident of the Space Working Farm, an affiliated artist with New George, and usual suspect with New York Theater Workshop. Her plays include, and by the way, I'm not going to go into like how many awards each one of these has won. We would be here literally all day. Her plays include Letty, Miller, Mississippi, Romance Novel for Dummies, Days Like Diamonds, The Play About My Dad, The D Life. By the way, did you start writing when you were about three and a half? Caveat Emptor, and The Momentum. Which, by the way, just on The Momentum, let's just take one of these. It's New York City Fringe Festival Excellence Award for overall production of a play, GLAAD Media Award nominee as well. I mean, that's just one. There's one of them I just threw out like what it's won. Her work has been presented at the Round Table Theater, the Public Theater, about 48 other theaters that I'm looking at. It's pretty extraordinary. And Boo was also a writer and producer for the TV series Longmire on Netflix. Mrs. America, which, by the way, is like so exceptionally amazing. I'm a huge fan. A Teacher at FX, Painkiller at Netflix, and Aim High at AMC, where she's a creator and executive producer as well. And she's currently developing an original series based on her life with Greer Shepherd for Amazon. So I'm already exhausted from the three of you. You're all way too accomplished and way too extraordinary. So I'm going to do my best to turn it over to you guys so that the people out there that are listening and that are getting to know you can actually hear from you, not from me. So let's go around the table here, and I would love to. Even though I've given a little bit of a highlight of how you guys came into screenwriting, I find one of the most interesting things, especially for writers, because we barely get to talk. We're usually not allowed to talk. Usually directors are jumping in front of us to talk. For writers, I feel like everybody has their sort of origin story and what brought them to this moment. And so I'm going to give you guys the floor. So Alston, let's start with you. Other than being like a badass in the Pentagon, exactly, how did that route bring you to screenwriting? Like, what is your origin story?
Sure. Yeah, I think I was more of like the weenie civilian in the Pentagon, with a lot of people with brass on their shoulders, and even in Afghanistan, I was still like the weirdo civilian among people who like are the guys that actually they wouldn't let me have a gun. I mean, for example, they don't issue that to me, which, in their defense, was probably a very, very good idea. But no, I started my career as a magazine writer and editor before becoming a speechwriter. And while I was in Washington, screenwriting was, I guess you'd say, a hobby in terms of research. I wasn't actually screenwriting, but I read books on screenwriting and would watch movies and read the screenplay along with them. My brother was out in Hollywood. His passion has always been directing from a very early age. This is what he wanted to do. So I think I was exposed to film very early, probably the kind of films you shouldn't be exposed to at that age, because my brother's 5 years older. So I'm like the 7-8-year-old watching all the Friday the 13th and everything. Yeah, exactly. So I finished up business school after that whole Afghanistan thing, and was kind of at a crossroads about I was working with a startup in North Carolina, where I'm from, where I'd gone to school, or do I want to throw caution to the wind and move out to Los Angeles and give it a go? And I decided that, like so many people before me, throw my stuff in the trunk of a car, drive across the country with, I think at that point I had one screenplay on my hard drive, and I got out here and I teamed up with my brother, and we made an independent film, Midnighters, that we came up with the idea together. I wrote it, and then we went and bootstrapped the hell out of it and made it ourselves, produced it ourselves, and did all that. And here we are today.
Awesome. amazing. And then we're definitely going to get back to the sibling thing because that has to be talked about. Fantastic.
It's a thing, right?
It really is. Kieran, again, like your street cred as far as your education is so extraordinary. And I'm really interested it seems that you really came almost from a journalism background almost into documentary and then into screenwriting. But everything seems to have a basis in reality. Is that sort of where you come from?
Yeah, no, I never intended to be a screenwriter. I had a pretty good thing going with documentaries. I spent a couple of years making this documentary that did well at festivals and got on PBS, and it was something I was very proud of. But it also put me in touch with the reality of documentary filmmaking, which is largely about either waiting for the phone to ring or waiting for something to happen that you can film. And it can be incredibly frustrating on a daily basis if you want to feel like you're actually being creatively fulfilled, because you're just not in control. You don't have, until you get into the editing room. And that's really where the creativity in documentary is in the final stage. But I was just kind of impatient, and on a kind of whim, I applied to grad school in fiction. And I went to the Mishner Center, which is this really generous fellowship program. And I wrote fiction for a couple of years. And I was on the verge of finishing a novel, or so I thought, and ran out of money. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons people get into screenwriting is they say to themselves, well, there's more money in this than in telling a short story. So let me try this. And I had my eye on a guy named Luis Posada Carriles, who was one of the foremost kind of assassins trained by the CIA to kill Castro. And he was still alive, and I wanted to make a documentary about him. And I went and interviewed him, and I realized there's no chance he'll ever let me get him on camera. So I'll just write a feature film about him instead. And I took that script and I got it in a very kind of privileged stroke of luck for me. I got it in the hands of Oliver Stone, who was delighted to see that there was somebody who was the generation down and also obsessed with the CIA. And so he hired me to write something that didn't happen, but that kicked off my career. I wrote a movie all about a near future second American Revolution if Bernie Sanders coupled with the Occupy movement and took over America. What would it look like? That was a lot of fun. It didn't happen, but it got me going on other projects. And then Oliver and I joined together again a couple years later to do Snowden. And that's how it started for me. Yeah. But it was basically about my interest from the beginning was in trying to tell stories that I thought were politically important, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I just followed that instinct the whole way.
Right. And what's amazing is, I mean, the validation, I would assume in not only, Oliver Stone, but also Errol Morris recognizing your ability and your talent. I mean, that is that's okay. That is, I'm surprised it didn't happen here first. Hello. No, it's that is extraordinary street cred when it comes to writing political material. Those are high watermarks, man. Like, I mean, Oliver Stone, come on, he's one of the most decorated screenwriters of all time.
Yeah, and I had and together with Tommy Lee Jones, that was my masterclass in screenwriting between the two of them. It was more like having the shit beaten out of you than a masterclass.
Yes.
To be accurate here. But it certainly proved to be a learning experience, and I have benefited from it ultimately a lot. I think it's very difficult these days to get audiences excited about political subject matter. Very difficult. So you have to kind of couch it in something else. A lot of genre these days is trying to include political subjects, and that's interesting to me. I mean, I think there will always be an appetite for it as long as people remain, thinking citizens. I hope, anyway.
Well, I think the best way to get the audience to eat their vegetables is to hide it in something that looks like this movie. So, I mean, Night of Living Dead is about, it's about the Vietnam War and about the civil rights movement. Yet people know it's, zombies. Well, but that's not really what was on George's mind. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And now we come to our third panelist, Boo Killebrew. Okay, first off, the names are like so extraordinary today. That's awesome. Like, this is awesome. I mean, it's almost alliterative in the way that it sounds. It's just it's an incredible name. But the amount of awards, I read your bio and I was like, oh my God. It's
You're like the best hype man ever.
Hey, I'll be the Flavor Flav of the Catalina Festival. Look, you're also because I think it's a smaller panel, but also I love that you're representing women on this panel, which you are doing beautifully because of this amount of accolades. What was your journey like? And what was your journey like? We'll get into other subjects along the way, but I mean, you're obviously well-versed, extraordinary playwright. How did that kind of lead you to this coast and the nonsense here?
Yeah. Well, I did start, in theater and have a theater background and love it. But, it's one of those things where, you can write a ton of plays and you can have them produced and you're still working like 3 survival jobs. There's just not a real way to make a living doing it unless you're teaching, which I also did. And so I love it. And I was, bartending and teaching and doing all kinds of jobs while I was writing. And then when I was in grad school at Juilliard, a woman named Greer Shepard out here in LA read one of my plays. And she was like, we talked on the phone and she said, do you want to come write for this show Longmire? And I was like, well, I'm in grad school, so I can't. And then I went out there during my spring break and we broke a story. She sort of showed me how to write a procedural. And then I went back and I wrote it from New York. And then I wrote for that show for about 4 years.
Wow.
Wow. And so I got super, super lucky. And then I was like, oh, you can get paid money to do this. So my mom was in shock. She was like, they pay you for that? And I was like, they do. And so then I created a show called Aim High about a woman who owns and operates a gun distribution and manufacturing company. And that got sold to AMC, and they did a mini room, which is a smaller room. And we sort of broke out the season and showed what it was going to be like. And it didn't end up going, but it was a great experience because it was, it was this great experience because I was in charge, but I also had help. And so I was learning everything sort of on the fly. And the same with Longmire, both were non-traditional writing rooms. And so I kind of came up in these, in a non-traditional way. And then when I did Mrs. America, that was more of a traditional writer's room. And that's when I finally said, you know what, I'm going to stop going between New York and LA. I'm going to actually make the move to LA. And that's when I came here for good and really kind of got in there. And I love it. I love how much, I don't know, it's one of those things where I always just want to be a student and I always want to learn how to get more tools in the toolbox. And I feel like every experience I have with television does that. It's always different. It's always new. It always like keeps me on my toes in some way. And I'm always learning and always like terrified, which is great.
It is great.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit of feedback.
For me?
No. I'm hearing my own voice.
Oh.
That's weird. All right. Are you guys getting an echo or anything? We're good?
I'm hearing you echo.
Is that better now? Okay, now I think we got it. I think they got it under control. Okay, good. Maybe. I'm not sure. Good. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So here's the thing. I think that the most interesting thing happening for screenwriters, especially people who've written features. That's so weird. It is just coming out of nowhere. Are we good? Oh, now how's that? Okay, good. Guys, I think that what's sort of fascinating is because of this golden age of television, and I mean the lockdown has what it's done to feature filmmaking and feature presentation is kind of extraordinary. That television, which was already kind of taking over as the new movies and all entertainment, how have all three of you? How is you? I mean, Boo, I think you were more mainline directly from theater into television. Boo, have you done any feature screenplays as well, or has it been strictly television and theater? Awesome. Okay. By the way, I can't wait for you to have your first experience as a film writer because it's usually awful.
Great.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a whole different experience. It is not TV. It is not the warm embrace of writer love. It's none of that.
Yeah.
But I think that television, and I think the respect that writers are receiving, especially now because of television, I'm hoping that'll bleed more into feature films and will make it more comfy for all of us when we are writers for hire or whatnot. Kieran, I think probably has the toughest experience having having the fact that he had Oliver Stone, Tommy Lee Jones. God, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine.
It's funny. I'll tell you, actually, that much more difficult in a way was what happened after Snowden. I took a big gamble on a job writing what was supposed to be the first Call of Duty movie, and I actually worked with Coco Francini, Boo, who I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah.
Stacey Show were producing it, and my only point is that it's actually the most frustrating thing is when you put a couple of years into something that doesn't happen, and when a movie costs that much money, and there are that many cooks in the kitchen, and there's that kind of brand on the table, and it's not just about the movie; it's also about the marketing and who's going to see it in India and who's going to see it in China, then it becomes a whole other thing. And then you feel like you're involved in a kind of, some kind of corporate decision as opposed to a movie. And that was more difficult in a way to watch that whole thing come apart. And it did. Activision ended up scrapping all of their projects. It's a long story, but yeah, it can be worse, in other words.
Isn't it fascinating that adapting real life situations that are so complex and so political is so much easier than adapting a freaking video game?
Yeah, no, they have a long track record of failing. Video game movies. Yeah, and you realize why once you get into it. And I mean, the simple reason is that there's so many people who've put in so much time and effort into making those video games, and rightfully they want their energy to be somehow translated into the movie. But of course, it's difficult. It's very difficult to try and do some pay homage to a video game while also telling a good story within a movie. Very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That also, it just reminds me of one of my favorite expressions that we always use speech writing, which is that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. The bigger the committee, the more the creative voices get drowned out and ground down. Anything that's original or interesting gets dropped and pushed away.
Yeah.
I also think that has to do with money and scale because look, I mean, and Olsen, I think you can speak to this because I believe your first feature was independently financed, correct? The Midnighters. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the process of bringing that forward as an independent filmmaker?
Sure. Yeah. And I think, get this question a lot of times in terms of people who are like, they're trying to make in the industry. So what's their advice? What's your advice? And me and my brother say, well, if you want to make a movie, go make a movie. There's not much else you can say. If you sit around Hollywood waiting for something to happen. It could take forever. And so we had written a script that we knew could be done at budget, just we knew like contained low number of casts, like it's why all horror movies are like haunted houses, single location, all of like the basic things. And we played the Hollywood part of it for a little bit, but you know, the folks we were working with, they wanted to go out and get the handful of internationally bankable actresses in the lead role. And we're the ones, theoretically the novices, saying like, there's no chance in hell these people will ever do this movie. Like, good script. My brother has a pedigree in television, but like, these actors are not going to do this. We know that. And we wasted, you know, I don't know, we didn't waste that much time, 6-8 months going down that rabbit hole. And then we're like, you know, screw this. We can go raise the money ourselves and we can make it. Far less intelligent people have made movies. So let's just go and do it. Now, I will say, like, that was my naivete coming through, because everyone's like, it's really, really hard. I'm like, whatever, like, we can do this. We've been around. He has an experience in post and directing. I have an MBA. Making independent film, any film, I think, but independent film, it's just effing hard. And it's like, it's not a matter of willpower or intelligence or anything. It's just like everything that can go wrong will go wrong. You're not paying the full rates of a regular like Marvel film. So people just bail. They get like a better deal and they disappear at the most inopportune times. Like, you know, I had the person that was supposed to be designing our titles, like, just shit the bed, you know, days before our main titles are due to submit to film festival. And so I'm on my computer doing all-nighters, learning how to use After Effects to do like cool titles, because there ain't anyone else doing it. So I mean, that's the thing with independent film, is like, it's only you, and you know, people are going to fall apart, and you've got to do like every little thing, whether it's cleaning the house when we are done, because we didn't want to pay for, like, literally the director of the film, 2 days after we're done wrapping, he's scrubbing toilets. I took a lot of pleasure, given that it's my brother, watching him do that. He always said, though, that after like a grueling 20-day shoot, that he actually loved it, because it was like this therapeutic, just doing manual labor where like he didn't have to think about anything. It's just sponge and scrubbing. And so I'm like, you know, more power to you. You want to clean the house? Go for it, man.
Truly, when you get finished directing, and that was my primary focus when I first started in the industry. But when you get done directing a movie, you just beg the people around you. Like, my wife would be like, "Hey, where do you want to go for dinner?" And I'm like, no questions. Just choose. Put me in the car. I'll go wherever you want. I don't care. I don't care how expensive it is. I don't care if it's food I hate. I don't care. Just no questions. I can't answer anything for you. And it's true. It's that process is exhausting. So did you find, because I figured are you still doing any independent stuff, or are you just doing current occupant for Blumhouse? Is that what you're working on now, or do you have other projects that are still independent?
I don't have other independent projects. I think independent film's great and wonderful, and I'm heartbroken not to be at the festival, because I think that, you know, one of the high points of just making movies, everything, is the festival circuit. It's so much fun, and meeting other filmmakers. You know, the trade-off between independent film and the real industry is, in the real industry, there's a lot more resources, and you don't have to deal with, it's their own challenges with, you know, all the different layers and the notes process and all of that. But, you know, maybe I would do an independent film again at some point. I think it would depend on the circumstances, and it would not be a situation where I'm going hat in hand and raising small chunks of money. And, you know, it would have to be like one of those more properly financed independent films. But for now, I'm working on a TV series with my brother that we're trying to move forward.
Awesome.
I love independent film. Maybe one day, but
yeah.
Maybe one day I would like to finance some young independent filmmakers who would like to go scrub the toilets themselves.
Yep. Kieran, so let's move into feature filmmaking before we get to TV. So for studio feature filmmaking, what was the notes process like with someone like an Oliver Stone when there's a lot of money and A-list talent on the line?
Well, there's various ways to tell this story, but the sort of, let's say, the sanitized short version for public consumption is that Oliver's not somebody used to ceding control on anything, and so if you're going to make, you're basically, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it means that in order to win a battle about anything, whether it's a line of dialogue or a bit of costume or something, you have to be right, and you have to really know your shit. I mean, I think one of the misconceptions about him over time is that he's kind of paranoid conspiracy theorist, and to some extent that's true, but what people, I think, probably have lost sight of is that he's actually an incredibly well-researched, educated mind. I mean, he reads everything all the time, and so you really have to know things in order to push back against him, and that just elevates your game as a human being and a writer. And that was true for me. It was true for Joe Gordon-Levitt. It was true for all the other actors, and because that movie really wasn't, it's not that there were notes coming down from anyone other than Oliver, and because that's just not the way he works. I mean, he's one of the few people, probably one of 4 or 5 directors left who just simply won't take notes from the studio, because that's not what they do, and they have the power to get away with it, right? I mean, that's almost impossible now. So in that sense, it was cool because it was just me against him. On the other hand, we probably could, it's not to say that studio notes are always necessarily bad. It depends on the person. Sure. It really depends on the person. The person that I mentioned to Boo earlier, Coco Francine, is a fantastic giver of notes. I mean, really great producer. And, so, it's not, it's about how they approach the material, what their priorities are, how sharp they are. And, and that's just going to vary from person to person. I personally, I wish that there could be more situations like, the Oliver Stones of the world going forward, just so that movies in that mid-range between 15 and $50 million could get made without too many cooks in the kitchen, but I just don't see that happening. I just don't think that's the chunk of movies that is really disappearing completely now. Yeah. To some extent, Netflix is coming in and making movies in that range, and Amazon, but you're just not going to see a lot of sort of dramatic awards movies made at that price range anymore.
Absolutely.
So that's my 2 cents on the landscape.
Awesome. All right, so now we come to television. And I know all of you are now have a stake in that, but Boo, since you are sort of queen of the writer's room, which you kind of are, you got to deal with it. It's awesome. Can you talk about sort of a little bit about that process? Because I think that most writers coming up now are less interested in features, even though I think that's where most people cut their teeth. But I think that everybody is really excited about TV. And let's be honest, I mean, television is the writer's medium. It is. I mean, playwriting and television, and I think mostly because there's an immediacy to it, because you have to create so much material, and it has to happen now. It's got to be on now. And once a show is going, you have to keep the train rolling. Like, there's no way around that. So what has been your experience as far as we're talking about sort of the frustrations of being a writer and the blocks you can come across? What are sort of some of the triumphs and also the frustrations for you as a TV writer?
Sure. Well, I think for me, the best thing about it is the collaboration, is the working sort of, as a team to create this thing that did not exist before. And so what I think is so fun is that each person sort of, you realize who is what, who does what, right? Like, oh, this person's really great at structure. This person's really great at emotional beats. This person's really great at character. This one's really great at relationships. And then you watch people sort of begin to play their position. And that took me like a while to sort of like understand. And I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm not contributing much as far as like A story, B story, C story. I'm not great with structure, but then I was like, oh, but I can do like character stuff. I can do dialogue. You know what I mean? And so really leaning into your strengths and you know, contributing, but letting go of the fact that like maybe one of these things, someone is probably much better than you at it, and you can learn from them. So that has been really exciting, and also again like scary, you know what I mean, because you want to be like, oh no, I can do it all, I can do it all, but chances are someone else is better at a certain aspect of writing, of creating a TV show than you. And the other thing that is both rewarding and can be incredibly stressful is the immediacy of it. With plays, you can be in development for 5 years, you know, get the play up, and the play, and it goes through so many phases of development. And then the play, once it's actually like produced, you're like, is this the same play I started writing 5 years ago? And so I don't love that with playwriting, but TV, like, oh, the ideas and the inspiration or whatever that I have is going to like be played out. I'm going to see it happen. And that's really exciting, but it's also really stressful because there's also this this need for, you know, a quick turnaround. And so, you know, there's this great quote that Chuck Close says, and it's like, inspiration is for amateurs. And like the stuff actually comes out of the work, right? So you can't really sit there and be like, I don't quite understand this. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's like, no, you just have to get in there. You have to turn this in 2 hours. Chances are you're going to figure it out while you're in the document, you know? And so it is just this idea of not being very precious, working very, very hard and being very, very disciplined, but also just being like, oh, I have to get this done, and I have to get it done right away. And it's you know, it really, there's an athleticism to it, right? And it wakes up a certain muscle in your brain where you're just like, okay, I have to snap into this scene right now. I have to edit this right now. I have to address these notes right now. And you know, as someone coming from like a playwriting background where everything is sort of like, oh, but I don't know if I feel this. I'm not sure if I, like, you know, I'm like one with this, and it's like, no, just do it. And so it's like down and dirty in a really good way, but also in a way that, like, you know, can be stressful.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, have you been strictly writer's room, or do you also do set work where you're making? Yeah. And how is that? Because that's got to be stressful and fun.
Both. I love it. And I love, I've been lucky to work with people and directors who, you know, I like interact with, and I'm just like, I don't know. I really think that it should be close on her face during this. And like, it's been such a great collaboration.
Awesome.
Which I love, because that's what I do with playwriting. I work very closely with directors. And, you know, also when you're writing, you are kind of directing too, right? Like, you're writing down shot for shot what's happening. And so being on set and sort of making sure that the script is being followed is the best. And also, you know, if something doesn't work, you get to fix it on the fly. Or if, you know, a line doesn't work, you fix it on the fly. I love it.
And it's what makes television such a magnificent medium for writers, because it's hilarious. But like, I hear you say, like, you know, yeah, I'm working with the director on the shot, and I'm like, wow. Because in feature world, truly, if the writer is even allowed 4 miles close to set, you feel like, ooh, I think I see something happening over there that looks like my movie. I have literally sat in. My wife and I wrote Texas Chainsaw, and we sat in a theater at Lionsgate, where they had shown us the theater. It showed us the movie it was like a 300-seat theater at Lionsgate, and we're sitting alone. It's a screening just for us, right? They were so excited. They're presenting the movie to us. And we sat there watching, and we're like, what's this?
Wow.
And that's just the way it goes. And you're like, So, yes, it is really the major difference between playwriting and screenwriting and TV writing. And again, plays and television. And look, let's be honest, the best of the original television stuff all came out of New York. And it was all playwrights. They pulled all playwrights, and that was how that industry became what it is. So it is a magnificent area to work in. It really is, and so collaborative. And actually, I think gives authorship to all of the right people. You know, because this idea that producers aren't authors of their films is also disturbing. Like, a producer is an author. Yeah. You know, not the guy who got his girlfriend in the movie, but, you know, the person who actually produces the movie. So yeah. So Alston, you said you're working on a television show with your brother right now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what is that like? I mean, especially since you're collaborating with your brother. First off, okay, so we have to hit this. So how long have you been collaborating with your brother, and how is that working out?
Well, first of all, you said you worked with
he's a year and a half
older or younger?
Yeah.
Oh wow, you guys are really close in age. Yeah, so I'm the youngest of three, and my brother's 5 years older, and we have a middle brother who he often plays the prototypical middle brother role of mediator, and he does in life in general, and he's excellent at it. You know, we started collaborating with Midnighters, and then we just did The Current Occupant, the Hulu Blumhouse film, and now we're doing this TV series together. And you know, we have some stuff separate. We have a lot of overlapping interests, but then like separate things. Yeah, I think it's amazing in some respects, and then not as amazing in others. And I don't think it'll be surprising that, you know, the downside is you can end up in arguments that like just blow up and conflate. And at some point you both realize like you're not arguing about something in the present day. You're actually arguing about, you know, the toy that we had when we were 5 years old, and whether our mom gave one of us more attention on some day like back in 1986. And then, you know, you get over it and move past it. I think the positive side is making a movie is like going to war. And the question is, in this industry too, is a war. I think we've all been on the right and wrong side of it. You know, who do you want in the foxhole with you when the shit goes down? And who's the person you can depend on? Who's the person that will never push you in front of a bus and always has your back? And, you know, there's a lot of great people in Hollywood. There's a lot of not so great people. And, you know, there's few people I think you can really trust more than a sibling or like your childhood friend. And it's funny because I think you actually see like childhood friends also working together closely as they move up. You know, I think one thing that's great is that our arguments and disputes are pretty much never on the creative front, which is kind of amazing. Like, we just don't butt heads in that respect. And I think it's because we have like a real shared film language. And I think part of that comes from, you know, the joke I made about watching like horror movies when I'm really young. It's true. That, like, I grew up watching the same things he was because he was older and more into film. And even now, like, our tastes are such that I'd say 99 out of 100 TV shows or films, like, we're in complete accord on. And then there'll be like the weird one where it's like, I love it and he hates it, or vice versa, which is just totally strange. But, you know, creatively, we just don't argue about stuff. And on set, I feel like I'm the luckiest person because I'm the writer on monitor who can take the step back. I don't have the responsibility of directing. When I have an idea or something and want to come step out and talk to him, he's so receptive and will listen to it. And I'll get overruled, but like, I don't argue the point because I I know my role and I know his role, and I don't want to direct. I don't want to be in that role and that level of like detail and like, let's go again. That's just like not my thing. And I respect it all. And I've been in the editing room, so I know what's going on. But it still means I bat a really high percentage because he's going to listen to me. And because I have that vantage point of I'm like a little above the like melee of, he's got to make the next shot. And I'm sitting there like I'm watching the movie take place on a monitor. I can say like, this bigger picture thing that connects with the thing in Act 3 that we're filming in 2 weeks. I don't know if this is working. And he's very receptive to that. So I think it's just a really, really good dynamic, especially at that part of the process. And that's fun for me because I don't have as much of the pressure of like, the clock's ticking.
Right.
But I can really engage on the creative front.
I think that he's lucky as well because you are supporting him truly as a writer, because there's so many people who want to direct and then they get to direct and go, oh my God, what was I wishing on my and it's always interesting when somebody really loves the job they're doing and has no interest in taking your job. They just want to assist in the way that their voice can help tell the story. So that's actually, that's a blessing for your brother as well. Because he's not worried about you trying to take over what he's doing, because he knows, Alston doesn't want to deal with, the hem of that dress.
So what's your mailing address so I can send you the check for that and the promotion you're giving us at the top of the show? It's in the mail, Adam. It's in the mail.
Dude, I speak only from a place of knowing exactly where you are and where you come from. And honestly, again, as a director, I've had cinematographers who want my job. And I'm going like, can you please shoot the movie? Like, what are we doing here, man?
I'm the person that's like, God, why would anyone want that job? I mean, more power to you. It's incredible. Like I think part of the reason I'm like, I just don't want to do that is because of how much respect I have for it. I think it really, and for all like writers out there, I think one of the most useful things for me as a writer was when we did our independent film, sitting in the editing room after my brother done the rough cut and watching the editing process. And he's an Emmy nominated editor, so he knows what he's doing. But it taught me so much of like, when you start realizing what you can do and how you can shape a film and characters and everything in the editing room, plus like the dialogue you cared so much about that like you just delete because it's bad and it doesn't work for the story, like the preciousness with the writing process, like it all falls away in the editing room. Plus just learning like, what was he doing on set? Now I understand what he was doing. Like now I understand like all the setups. Now I understand the different takes where like on that first film where I've never seen it that close first. I'm like, what is going on? And then once I understood it all, it's like infinite respect for the why and the what is going on, but also like just realizing that it's just not, it's not something that I'm particularly interested in doing.
Right. And Kieran, you're working on television as well. You've actually had quite a bit of success. I mean, the Errol Morris series is that's pretty extraordinary. But you have 2 shows in development right now. Mm-hmm. First off, like, how is it splitting your time between both those things? Because they're very diverse 2 shows, dude. Like those are, my God. How is that? Yeah, working on multiple projects that way.
I mean, I still don't understand how to do that. It just doesn't come naturally to me. I mean, I think to some extent, this is the people who get involved in this circus are obsessive people. You have to be in order to do it. It's just too hard otherwise. If you don't have something obsessive about you, it'll never happen. So how do you obsess about 2 things at once? It's tricky. And I'm still figuring it out. And really, it's not just 2. I mean, there's more. I mean, it's more like eat, really. Because that's the thing, as you get older, you start to realize, Jesus, I have so many years left. And at a movie every 4 years, if I'm lucky, or a TV show every 4 years, I mean, I better really start spreading my bets a little bit to make sure things happen, because you can put all your eggs in one basket that looks really good. I bet on Call of Duty, seemed like a good bet, big brand.
Yeah.
3 years of your life gone. That's very easy, can happen all the time. And so you got to be careful, and you got to figure out how to, and I mean, I'm saying this to myself because I'm trying to figure that out. How do you spread your bets and work in a way that's actually going to be material to the project happening? I mean, this is the thing that it took me forever to figure out, because I came from writing fiction, at least when it came to, art on the page. And so I would just spend hours and hours writing these, what I thought were really lovely sentences of scene description, only to realize nobody was reading them and no one gave a shit. And that's like a hard thing to come to terms with when you like language, So then the question is, well, where do I put my emphasis? And it's really on the story, the organization of the whole story, and the dialogue. Because it doesn't. If you're a great prose writer and you dump 90% of your time into writing the good prose in a script, that's not enough. It turns out. So this is a long way of saying I don't really know how to do multiple projects at once. I'm also trying to do this as a way of getting into directing, because one of the ways you can do it as a writer is to get a show going that you've created and then hire yourself to direct episodes. That seems to me like the safer way in, so that if there's 1 or 2 bad episodes in a season, the whole season will still work, and no one will know that I've been basically using my own show to experiment on them. That's my master plan.
It is
my master plan.
Yeah. Look, I also think what's great about TV is that in some ways there is a certain independent film quality to it, only because of the scheduling. You have to do so much in so short a time that I think it preps you to be able to make a bigger movie, or to make something that has a longer breadth of space to shoot in, because you're really, it's what Boo and I were talking about. It's that immediacy. It's like, we don't care about your artistic vision. Move it. We got time to fill, and an audience that's expecting this episode in 2 weeks. So let's go. So I think it's a great testing ground for directing. It absolutely is. And you're right. It's the because you also have a backup team of hopefully excellent writers that are contributing on that set, and that's completely accepted and the way it should work. You have people strengthening you as a director to be able to make those calls. So that's great. I think that's an awesome evil plan. Well done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just following in the footsteps. Lisa Joy just pulled this off. She's, one of the creators of Westworld, and she directed a fantastic episode in the second season. And now she's just done her first feature film on the strength of that episode in Westworld. So it is possible.
Awesome. So, Boo, I want to come to you on something that that I was about to touch on at the beginning, but I wanted to couch it for a little bit later, because I think it's super important right now. And look, I can't wait till panels like this cannot have this question anymore, cannot have to deal with this anymore. Sadly, we're still dealing with it because we are nowhere near where we need to be on this issue. But as a woman in the film industry and as a writer, how have you seen a change since the beginning of your career to now in either the respect or the amount of women that are writing, or the feeling of inclusion at this point? Do you see a difference, and how do you see it moving in the future?
I do see a difference, for sure. My first job was it was a woman showrunner, and so I got very lucky in that.
Yeah.
And she's also, she's a mother, and she has a full life, and so to see this example of how you could do this was really important for me. Like I was like, oh, this is a good role model. This is a good way to look. And then I have actually been in rooms, I would say it is 50-50, that have been run, like the Mrs. America, we only had one male. It was all women. And it was awesome. It was so great.
And the show is freaking incredible.
Oh, great. Thanks.
It's incredible.
Great. And it was really wonderful. And then I have been lucky in that the men that I've worked with have been just incredible people and very inclusive and very open and very encouraging. And so I have been like quite lucky in that I have had these incredible women role models, and I've also had like pretty incredible male role models too. And I hope it's changing. I do think it. From where I sit, it is, for the best, and I think it'll continue. I think it's also about like the stories that are out there, right? So if you're telling, white, straight, male stories, you're going to get those creators and writers. But if we, expand what stories are being told and what stories need to be told, then automatically we're going to have creators that are, it's going to be a more diverse pool of creators and thinkers and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's also about studios and networks expanding their pool of stories and voices, and the more that they do that, the more diverse the staff will be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, and I've said this my whole career, the only color that Hollywood cares about is green. That's it. Yeah. They don't care about anything else. And here's the thing: if a movie makes money, then every studio wants to make that movie.
Right.
If a television show hits with its audience, great. How do we get more of that?
Right.
So I think that I think as long as the audience is ready to jump into new stories, then new voices can be heard.
And I think they are. I mean, you look at and I think it's about like studios and networks being like trusting that audiences want this and crave this and need this storytelling. Absolutely.
I have to say, like, it's so heartening to hear that, because I did a panel for Catalina maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, where we had a couple of women on the panel, and their experience was in no way your experience.
Yeah.
And that's a heartening thing to hear. Like, oh my God, like are we actually getting better at this? That's amazing. Like any forward movement, but that's really spectacular. And also I thank you also for talking about the fact that there have been men that have been just as nurturing and just as great and inclusive and wanting to work and just act like a professional. That's oh my God.
Absolutely. And it's not lost on me that people have like paved the way for my experience and have fought the battles so that I can sit comfortably and confidently in a room. And it's incredible.
Awesome. So, guys, let's all talk about for a moment, because I think because the people that are going to be listening to this, or a large swath of the people that will listen to this, are going to be people who are aspiring to do what you're doing. And I think one of the things that's helpful, I find, if you guys could each talk about sort of like your inspiration or like a favorite film or TV show that kind of prompted you into this, that we all have that moment where we're like, I want to do this. And I'm not talking just from a nuts and bolts standpoint, but from the idea of inspiration. And I always find it's fascinating, like when a young person who has an interest in this, when they hear from someone that their inspiration is identical to that person who's done well, I think that that's helpful to kind of mainlining them into what we're trying to do. So Alston, what would be like, what was the movie or the story that made you want to be a storyteller?
That's tough. I'll do one book, one movie. In sort of the screenwriting canon, there's a book sitting on my shelf about 3 feet away. It's called Four Screenplays by Sid Feld. Yeah, and if you know the book, like basically it's 4 really in-depth essays about these screenplays, about the story around them, the story around the movie, and kind of breaking them down, but getting into like how it all came about. And it was just a really fascinating book. And then to read the screenplays in it, I'm forgetting what they are. I'm not going to grab it right now, but was Terminator 2 one of them? Or Terminator was one of them, or Terminator 2? I think it was 2. It was 2 because he makes the point that, you know, the real hero protagonist of that is actually the Terminator, because he has the greatest arc from this whole thing of how he's a machine and then he learns to feel. And it's like the whole line at the end that I think in anyone's hands except James Cameron be incredibly cheesy about, like, I now know why you can cry, but I could never do it. And it's like, really, if it's not James Cameron, that is like one of the worst lines in cinema. And instead it's one of the most incredible, and Arnold of all people sells it. I just thought that book was so influential to me because of, I don't know, it tells the story and it got me to read the screenplays along with it. And I read both Terminator 2 as well as The Abyss, James Cameron. I mean, it's just intimidating because he's so, like, at the screenplay level, he's so masterful. I'd say the other one, though, that was really eye-opening is it's an older, I don't know if you'd call it obscure now, but it's called Tender Mercies. It was a screenplay by Horton Foote, the famous playwright, with Robert Duvall, and it's like every movie since about a down-and-out country western singer is about that movie, and that movie is 100 times better than everything that came after it. It's just an incredible film, and it's so small and subtle and beautiful and powerful, and the screenplay is it's so sparse. Like, the dialogue is so sparse, and it's amazing when you watch the movie with the screenplay, because it's like, I don't know how with so few words and how like I said, sparse the dialogue is, that you create this like such a powerful story about a person, a human being, and that, to me, that is just it's incredible on so many levels. And just as a side note on that, Robert Duvall went to Texas, drove around Texas until he found the Texan who had the accent that he liked the most, that he thought was right for the role, had the guy read the whole screenplay while he recorded it, and he like listened to that and tried to mimic this one person's precise, exact, this part of Texas accent.
Wow.
And
that's authenticity.
And it won him an Academy Award for Best Actor. And here's a terrifying story. Robert Duvall wins the Academy Award for Best Actor, did not get offered a job for 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years, Robert Duvall sat on a shelf after he had won the Academy Award for Best Actor. It's an amazing film, by the way. It is extraordinary.
Yeah, and I think anyone out there who wants to get into the business on like the writing front I'd watch that movie and read the screenplay, just because it's like, you know, it's so masterful. You can't really top it.
Awesome.
That and Terminator 2, of course.
Yeah.
Let's go together hand in hand.
Kieran?
I think that I was gonna. I don't know why these two movies popped into my head, but they did. One is the Jane Campion movie, The Piano, and the other is Gallipoli. One of Peter Weir's. I mean, I guess the reason they pop into my head is that they're examples of things that just feel epic, and that's the thing that gets me. You know, I mean, there's something about movies and TV shows that is epic in a way that it's difficult to, there's an epic emotion, let's say, that's difficult to find in your everyday life. And I think that's the thing that I keep coming back to, you know, the sense that these people's lives, at least for a little while you're watching, seem to have, you know, incredible importance and meaning. And that is often forgotten in one's own life. And I think that it's sometimes these very epic settings that are allow a movie to do that. The Piano, of course, in New Zealand, and that extraordinary setting, and Gallipoli is the site of the most tragic battle of the First World War. Those are the I guess I think in images and I suppose that's why I ended up doing this. But I think first of an epic setting, or an epic character as ways to, as reasons for me continuing to do this. I suppose those are the things that immediately pop into my mind. And that goes back to, I don't know, Lawrence of Arabia, and and even things that are more intimately epic, like Cries and Whispers, the Bergman movie. So, yeah, that's the through line, to the extent there is one for me.
Love it. And Gallipoli, probably one of the top 10 best ending shots of any ever.
Yeah.
Extraordinary movie. Oh my God, extraordinary. Boo, what's yours?
I mean, it's a lot of different things. The first thing that came into my head is when I was little, instead of like watching kids like shows, I loved Days of Our Lives. I loved soap operas, and so I just loved like the drama and the high stakes. And so when I was like 6, I'd be like, "Can we watch Days?" That was like a big thing. But then I got a little more sophisticated with my tastes. So I was born and raised in Mississippi, and so there are tons of literary influences down there that really inspired me. And so I grew up reading like Flannery O'Connor and Carson McCullers and of course Tennessee Williams, and that's what really made me want to write plays, because it is sort of it's beautiful language, and it's highbrow, but it's also got some soapy some soapy stuff in it. There's some Days of Our Lives in Tennessee Williams plays for sure. And so that was the thing. And so when I went to college and grad school, just reading those plays that are eternal, like Our Town and Death of a Salesman and Raisin in the Sun and Fences and sort of just these classics, always get me where I need to be. Like they always hit me in the heart, in the stomach, and I love coming back to those classics. And then as far as like TV, I remember when I first saw 6 Feet Under. It's so theatrical and it's so sprawling, and the relationships and characters and the heightened storytelling that they often do, and that stakes are the highest possibly they could possibly be. It's death, and so I really responded to that show, and I also really responded to the show My So-Called Life.
Great show.
I remember watching that in high school and being just inexplicably moved. And then I became really obsessed with Winnie Holtzman and what she was able to create. And I listened to so many interviews with her and like read, this was before like so much internet stuff, and I would always get my Entertainment Weekly, and I would always be like, "Is Winnie in here? Is Winnie in here?" And so I was very, very into that show, and I rewatched it over and over again. And that also has heightened storytelling. There's like a little magic in it, but then there's also this like bedrock of like high school angst. And I really responded to that show. But I would say those, like that and 6 Feet Under, were my 2 big ones. And Days.
Yeah. How did not? I mean, I was more of a guiding light man myself, but
that's when I was a kid. I grew out of Days, but yeah.
But I think honestly, especially for a writer, I think there's some great logic to that, because you're talking about dialogue, like constant dialogue.
Yeah.
And immediacy to that dialogue, such drama.
Yeah.
And look, Soap Dish, anything that inspires Soap Dish and Tootsie it makes the world a better place. So simply for having, I mean, honestly, just that Tootsie exists, I think all soap opera has been validated in one fell swoop. Like Larry Gelbart has made that happen. So
it's just so good. I watched that so much.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, right.
It's amazing.
Also, Waiting for Guffman was a big inspiration for me. I loved it. I love because it's theater, but it's also film. It's so funny, and I also feel like it's so sweethearted. It just had everything that I loved. That was a big one too.
Yes. Well, those bastard people. It's an amazing film. These are great and so varied. Oh my God. Like the three of you could not have picked more disparate stuff, which is awesome. No, it's amazing. But again, that's what I'm saying. There's so many people who think there's only one, that Citizen Kane is the only film that you can say when The Godfather. Yeah, those are incredible films, and if you're not moved by them, there's something wrong with you. But the truth is, I always find it much more interesting as to how people connect to things. Like Kieran, there was absolutely nothing surprising about the films that you love and the films that you write. It's a direct correlation. It makes perfect sense, and I think that's really important for young people to see because, look, the truth is there is nothing to say that the Magnificent Ambersons and Porky's are just as valid. They really are. I can't stand film snobbery. No, Terminator 2 and Tender Mercies, they belong in the same duplex. We need to see both of those films. To be well-rounded, and storytelling is about our audience and how it affects our audience. I constantly say, because I'm no matter what I do in my lifetime, I think I will always be Adam Jason Goes to Hell Marcus. It's just sort of my middle name, and it's my cross to bear. But it's funny because to this day I get interview requests literally every day for that movie. And I sit there going, I made this movie a quarter century ago. That's insane. But here's the thing. On that same weekend, when Jason Goes to Hell opened, I went to see the movie in Westwood, and I'd seen the movie 400 times already. And so I did not want to watch my movie again. God, for the love of God, please never make me watch it again. And so I walked in and I paid for a ticket for my movie because I was like, come on, box office. But I walked into the other theater. There were two showings, and I walked into the other theater to watch Searching for Bobby Fischer, which is a movie that I was really excited about. And I'm a huge Zalian fan, so I was excited to go see the movie. And that's a beautiful movie with incredible performances. I mean, Ben Kingsley and Joe Mantegna and Joan Allen. And and the story is wonderful and it's rich and it's 25 years later, no one, you can't find a person under 30 who goes, oh, I love Searching for Bobby Fischer. But Jason Goes to Hell, I get an interview request every week. That's ridiculous. But the truth is, that's what we do as storytellers, and I think I also think we're blessed this morning to have three such incredibly diverse voices. You guys, all of you, do such different things. As far as genre, since this festival does deal with genre a lot, what do you guys? And I'm not speaking just of horror or anything like that, but where do you guys see yourself? What if you had any genre you could write in, anything you could do, your dream genre to work in, what would that be? Where would you love to, just even if you're just a tourist in that genre for one project, what would that be? Alson?
30-minute comedy satire. Heavier on the satire and the edgier fare.
So Veep-ish?
Probably, yeah. I mean, Veep's wonderful. I think it's hilarious. Probably a little, yeah. I mean, in that realm, probably edging. Yeah. Probably a little less lighthearted. Probably a little more vicious satire. I think there's an old thing parody comes out of a place of love for a genre or the world, and satire comes out of a place for anger. So I feel with our politics, anger is more the emotion I feel. But I also think puncturing the illusions of power, the institutions of power, that's what comedy and satire is all about. And so, yeah. That's yeah.
Love it. Kieran?
I mean, we're talking about the thing that I'll likely never do, but would be cool if I could. I would work on an anime movie. I think probably like a Studio Ghibli movie, just because I think that there's, talk about hiding the medicine, as you said earlier. I mean, animation is one of the best ways to do it. I think, and I, there those legendary movies out of Japan that you guys know, I'm sure, Akira and Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke. I think they have really, again, very, epic appeal, that transcend the genre. And that's, I think, what's cool is when you're working inside genre, how do you find a way to transcend the genre itself? I think I would do that. Yeah.
Love it. That's awesome. And by the way, that's not out of the realm of possibility. What are you kidding? That's
art is long, unfortunately.
Yeah, but look at the route, let's say, of someone like Brad Bird, right, who came out of animation and then he's directing a Mission Impossible movie. Like, who the hell thought that would happen? Like Iron Giant to Mission Impossible.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah, it's
very true.
And just by saying this out loud, who the hell knows who's watching this? Who's like, so I'm just saying, Boo, what would be yours?
I would say on the dramedy side, 30 minutes would be great. But I think also like heightened storytelling, I'm very into, and so like things like Enlightened, I loved that show, and I thought it was as heartbreaking as it was hilarious, and it had that heightened storytelling in certain segments. The Comeback, I think, is the most genius show ever in the entire world. If I could ever make anything close to that, I would die a very happy woman. But yeah, I would say like drama with like a lot of comedy stuff, a lot of funny moments in it, because I think, just like Austin was saying, anything that's really funny is actually sad, and anything that's really sad is actually kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. So. I love that. I love that. And The Comeback is extraordinary.
So good. Yeah.
It's like
Adam.
Yeah.
I was just say I would add my guilty dream that I might have to do under a pseudonym is one of the Sharknado movies.
Well, sure.
Awesome.
Just because, like, the ability to write a film where it's like, I don't really care about character or dialogue or any of the things that I normally like kill myself over. It's like, it's Sharknado, man. That's just like sharks and chainsaws and stuff.
Awesome.
That's my like guilty dream.
If you guys have never gotten a chance, you should look at, especially for that kind of wish fulfillment, if you look at the beginning of Peter Jackson's career in New Zealand, his first couple of movies are these like
Heavenly Creatures.
Well, no, before Heavenly Creatures, I think, is a masterpiece. I actually think that's his best film. But no, things like Bad Taste, which he made on the weekends for years to get it accomplished, and then Dead Alive, or what was Brain Dead in New Zealand. Those are sort of like the best version of Sharknado movies ever. So, you should really check them out. They're brilliant. They're amazing, but they are in their own way. I mean, there's a guy who kills zombies with a lawnmower. I mean, it's that movie. A priest who kicks ass for the Lord. I mean, it's extraordinary. So I'm telling you, like, you should check these out. You'll totally dig it. Fantastic. I think we have a couple of questions from our audience. This is from Temp Tap. What are some of the common mistakes screenwriters make in writing a script and pitching? Who'd like to have at it? Boo, any thoughts?
Sure. Sure. I think for me, whenever I am making something that sort of like ticks all the boxes off and like sort of am going from the outside in, I do think that it doesn't ring as true. And when I read scripts that are like that, I'm like, this actually, this is technically all very efficient and it's technically very well done. I don't feel like if I don't feel like it cost the person anything to write it, if I don't feel like heart and guts and soul and vulnerability from the writer is there, then I'm not as interested. And so, sort of like, you see scripts that are very clever and that are that get it done, but I don't really feel like anyone put themselves on the line in a way, and so for me, I'm always like, if you're not scared writing it, I'm not going to be very interested in reading it. So I always kind of want.
Awesome, Kieran. Any thoughts on our question?
I'll address the pitching part of it, because I think on the writing side, I mean, writing is just one long series of mistakes. I mean, that's what it is. You better embrace that now. But in pitching, I think there's a way you can talk about it more practically, because you're dealing with human beings and you're essentially selling something to human beings. And how do you do that? And basically, I think that what I've seen is that you can really only expect human beings, especially like executives in Hollywood, to hold one thing in their head at most. So you got to plant one thing in their head and do a really good job of just that one thing. Even if it's whether it's a 5-minute pitch or an hour-long pitch, you're still planting one thing in their heads.
Yeah,
because they don't have the bandwidth. Even if they were doing nothing else with their day, they don't have the bandwidth to dwell on more than one thing. So really force yourself to focus on what that thing is, and do not cloud the field with too much information or too many ideas or too many strategies or too many things that are exciting you. That's what I would say from failing myself many times. Yeah.
Awesome. Alfred.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I think most writers probably feel this. I feel like they're entirely different skill sets, like pitching and writing a script. To me, pitching, there's an element of it where it just feels a little absurd, because it's like you could pitch the greatest thing in the world, but like, who's going to go and write 100 pages, 150 pages, or like come up with a whole TV series on something and, sit down at a computer in a room by yourself and do the work. And like, what is a screenplay? What's the words on the page? It's not like the BS you may have given in the room with someone. And pitching is also about it. It's what Kieran said, like, you're Kieran, sorry, did I just get that wrong?
Yeah, no, you got it.
It's in the room, it's dealing with a person, it's selling something, right? Like, there are probably used car salesmen that would do a lot better job selling my scripts than I would.
Sure.
I think that's why we're all impressed with like your thing up top. Like, it's that energy and the charisma that people bring. Advice me and my brother got from a very established showrunner was, when we were going in to pitch the current occupant, was that basically everything about the show, it's a feature film, but part of a TV series, from the plot to the way we want to film it to the comparables and everything, we should have it all in a 7-page document, right? Everything we want to say about it, and be the same with like a TV pitch too. It's all in 7 pages, and you don't really want more than that, because that's going to round out to, 12 or 15 minutes of talking continuously. And you really don't want to go past that, because people can only focus on so much, and you want to get into like an interactive back and forth. And you better know the story inside and out. Even if you're not pitching every detail, you have to know so much of it. Which is also a difficult thing for me, because if I get to that point with the script, I'd rather sit down for 2 weeks and just write it. Like, I'd rather just spec something.
Yeah.
And, I have as part of the Writers Guild, have another like established feature screenwriters, working at a very high level now. And he actually, for his pitches at this point, and he has a long track record, he's down to like the 5 or 7 minute range. And his philosophy on it is, he really pitches out act 1, like in detail, really sets it all up. And that's most of his pitch, right? And then he like just fast forwards through act 2, and then he hits a couple points in act 3, but like, it's all about act 1. He's like, because his point when he was talking to me and his other, I guess you call us mentees, he was like, how do you pitch act 2? Like, just how do you do it because of like the nature of what it is and its role in a film. It's just very difficult to speak to that in person. And I haven't tried that approach yet, but it feels right that you do a bang up job with 5-6 minutes, and particularly that first thing, and you leave them wanting more, and then you can sit there and talk for another 2 hours about it if they want.
Absolutely. Once they buy it, then we'll talk all day long. Happy to do it. Look, I think part of it also is starting to figure out, okay, how do we sell movies or television shows to an audience, right? We don't sit down an audience for 15, 25 minutes and tell them what the show is they're going to watch or a movie. We give them a 2-minute trailer at most. And so I actually think that executives think that way because they're thinking about the trailer anyway. They're thinking about how they're going to sell it. They're not thinking about how are we going to build this magnificent long format. No, they're going like, okay, what does a billboard look like? Like, how do I get people to put their eyeballs on this thing? So I think longer than that, you're almost spinning your wheels at that. Like, they're going to get it or they're not going to get it. And I agree with all three of you. Like, I think you have to understand your story and be so passionate about it implicitly that passion is immediately contagious.
Yeah.
If you can do that, I remember I sold a show to NBC. Literally because reading the executive, this was a very tight-lipped, very uptight, stick up their ass kind of executive. And they made a comment about and I turned and I went, oh, well, listen, I can tell you anything. We're mishpucha now. Sold. In the room, sold. And I knew the word mishpucha was the thing that was going to sell it. I knew it. I knew this person. I'm like, that person's going to die from laughter over that word. And they did, and they bought the script. So sometimes it's that simple. It's that small an idea, and that's how quickly it happens. So I think awesome advice, guys. This is from Devon K. How much should you expect to give up when they like your script, but bring in another screenwriter to polish it?
Well, Devon, they don't like your script, and you're going to give up everything. I think that's the short answer, right?
Yeah, but you may be on the other end of that at some point. I mean, you will. If you stick around long enough, you will. You'll be on both sides of that equation. You'll be the guy whose thing is being chucked out, and then you'll also be the guy or the girl who's brought in to, replace the thing that just got chucked out. So, I mean, it's circle of life. I mean, I would take a Buddhist approach to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's the term polish and the term punch up. They're terms of art that it can mean nothing, everything. It could be like it could really be a polish where someone's going to make the dialogue a little better. But like it could also be like they don't like it and they're just being polite and they're going to rewrite the whole thing because they can.
Right.
Well, I mean, maybe they should. Maybe they should. That's the other thing.
True. And it will also, if your name is still on there, it will ultimately make you look better.
Mm-hmm.
Look, anybody who ever got rewritten by Carrie Fisher, thanks to the Lucky Stars, they got rewritten by Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
Because she never took credit. She was always that person who came in, you paid her $500,000 for the weekend, and suddenly your script was funny and smart and better.
Yeah.
And it's because somebody funny, smart, and better than you came in and did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think that all touches too, though, on the point that a screenplay, especially in the features world, is it's a skeleton, and you're building so much on top of it, and like everyone's reinterpreting it, and everyone has a different vision, and the director's the ultimate vision, and if they like the bones of your structure and they hate everything else, like that's the nature of the beast, and I think that's where it's very different if you're writing like a novel or something under your own name where you can be precious about everything because it's your own name. But this is a very collaborative meeting with a lot of people involved, and like a screenplay is just that. Like it's a very base layer. There's so much that's going to go on top of it that, you should, even if someone's not brought in to do it, you should expect to give up a lot, and it's probably going to get a lot better.
Yeah.
If the screenplay doesn't get better because of the actors, because of the director, because of the production designer, because of the producers, there's a problem.
And a lot of times, and I think what you said about directors is really smart, because when a director comes on board to a project, and that's a great thing, like that suddenly makes it real. When a director comes on board, that director might have a person they work with and they collaborate with all the time, and they say, oh, I want that writer to come and do a polish because they know my voice and they know where my head's at. And again, it might not even be a large rewrite, but it puts the thumbprint of that director on the script. And I actually like when directors have writers, when directors don't come in and go, well, I'll rewrite. I like when they're like, listen, I'm not a great writer, but I work with a great writer. Great. Then you feel like that director is going to have more ownership on that project, which means they're going to care more and really swing for the fences with it. So I think it can be incredibly positive. However, it is always soul crushing. There's no way to get around that. It is always soul crushing. So I think that writers, you want to be a writer, great. You're not a writer until somebody's rewritten your ass. Just the way it works. Like that's the nature of the beast, guys. And again, it ultimately usually turns out to be a better thing, not a worse thing. But at the time when it happens, you feel like the world is ending, and why did I ever get involved in this? Boo, do you have a different opinion on that?
No. I mean, with playwriting, it's totally different. But in TV, you get rewritten all the time.
Yes.
And at a certain point, I hate to say this, at a certain point, it's none of your business. At a certain point, you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe this changed in episode so and so. This makes it change in mine, or maybe that and so you gotta really let go at a certain point with television, at least. I mean, be proud of your work and work hard on your work, but at a certain point, you gotta just kind of give it over.
I agree.
And in TV, the showrunner, it's like it's their vision for the show, and you're like you're a hired gun to help them because there's not enough hours in the day to write 10 scripts in 10 weeks. And yeah, I mean, it's their vision. They're like, it's the equivalent of like the director on set of a feature film. Like it's their vision. And I think that knowing the roles that every person has in these things, it's just good so that you can like let go of the things where it's like, well, that's not my lane. I have thoughts. There's a saying in the military where it's like, you voice your opinion, but at a certain point you say yes, sir, and you carry out someone else's orders.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. I think we have one more question. Yes, we do. This is from Delicious Tim Kennedy, because Tim Kennedy is obviously delicious. Do you always need a star attachment to get your script in consideration?
Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt you.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't, guys. It's so true. I agree with that assessment. Any other thoughts on the star attachment area?
I mean, yes, you need it, but no, if you're starting off in the industry, you're not going to get it. So it's. I feel like there's a million paths that eventually lead you to the position where you can get that, and you just have to like bang away. Like, I mean, this is the thing we dealt with in our independent film where, we had some reps that wanted those big giant star attachments. Like, it wasn't going to happen fundamentally. Like, yes, you read the story, lightning strikes every once in a while, and a no-name screenwriter who's outside the industry, somehow their script makes it to Matthew McConaughey's hands and he signs on or whatever. But, that pretty much, people win the lottery too. So, yeah, I mean, to ultimately sell something, especially if it's like a big $100 million idea, you've got to have stars, because it's like you're saying, like everyone's trying to figure out, well, how do you sell something? Right. You're not going to make your money back on $100 million movie with no name actors, because people don't go see that.
Well, when you pitch it, you can certainly, say your dream actors for the role so that they can get an idea of like what you're thinking, and maybe they could get them. Maybe
that's the Jedi mind trick of pitching.
Right.
Yeah, totally agree. Look, I also think, and to this, I think it goes back to something we talked about at the top of this discussion. I think that for people in the audience who are trying to break into writing and break into the business, I think what was said earlier, guys, stop worrying about whether the industry is going to embrace you, because I think that's a huge goal at the top, at the beginning of the journey. Go make things. Like we're at a day and age where every single person in our audience right now literally has a movie studio in their pocket.
It's crazy.
That's not a joke. You can take your phone and write, shoot, edit a movie on your telephone.
Yeah.
We live in that age. And we sometimes forget that we do that, like that we have that ability and that capability, right? And by the way, if you happen to have Photoshop, you have your title studio, your effects studio. I mean, guys, it's all right there at your fingertips. And I think that the idea of waiting for, Oliver Stone to discover you, for the love of God, Kieran. I think in waiting for somebody to find you at the Schraff's soda shop and say you're a star, I think you're going to wait your whole life. Instead, if you're a storyteller, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be any part of the filmmaking process, I think the only thing to do is to actually go do. And there are festivals all over planet Earth that are desperate for good material. By the way, note that I said good material because it's still got to be good. But if you feel like you've got a voice that needs to be heard, much like the three people that you've been lucky enough to hear from today, guys, go out and do what they did, which is they went out and made a career for themselves. You look at all of the disparate journeys these three voices have had, and it's amazing. Nobody started, I'm a screenwriter. Nobody did. It takes time and it takes energy and focus, but most importantly, it means that you sit down and you start writing today and shoot something tomorrow because you can. So, folks, I want to thank the three of you for what has been really a remarkable panel. You guys are amazing. Seriously, this is one of those rare cases where the feature is as good as the trailer. So the three of you, seriously, like I would love to, when all of this COVID goes away and when we're back in the real world, I would love to actually sit at a table with the three of you and have dinner and talk, because you guys are really amazing, and I feel like I learned a lot today. So it's quite extraordinary, all three of you. Thank you so much, guys. That'll wrap us up for the Catalina Film Festival, for the Writers Roundtable. And I want to remind everybody, Sunday at 10 a.m., there's going to be an actor panel. So you definitely want to be here for that, because if it's even 10% as good as what you just watched, oh my God, it's going to be a barn burner. So from the Catalina Film Festival, I'm Adam Marcus. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, Alston, Kieran, Boo, thank you so much. You guys were absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.